Ladies and gentlemen, I'm calling on Professor Nadine Peterson. She's the head of department of childhood education at the Soweto campus. Prof. Peterson joined us a few years ago, moved from the Auckland Park campus where she was involved in high school education, and joined this project, and soon after took up leadership in the Department of Childhood Education. I must acknowledge Nadine's strong leadership, and I must also say what drives her is a strong ethos of social justice, and that underpins everything that she does. So Nadine will share with you some of where we are today, a little bit of where we come from, and also give you a glimpse of where we think we are going in terms of this school as a school where we train, we educate teachers. Nadine.
Thank you, Professor Gravett. Good day, everyone. I speak today in my capacity, as Professor Gravett has said, as HOD for childhood education. But in this capacity, I also speak on behalf of a rather large group of people who have been involved in the development of Funda UJabule as a teaching school over the last few years. This team includes staff in the Department of Childhood Education, the Funda UJabule school teachers, our senior tutors, many retired primary school teachers who assist us in our work, and the many researchers who collaborate in projects housed in the Center for Education Practice Research, which has come to be known as the research leg of childhood education. When this school first came into being a few years back, almost 6 years now, it was the fulfillment of a dream for its initiators. The Soweto community did not need yet another primary school. Thus, although Funda UJabule is a public primary school in Soweto, it was also established as a very specific kind of school for a very specific set of purposes. It was created for educational research innovation and as a site to enrich pre-service teacher education for the primary school. I will primarily address aspects related to the school as a site for teacher education, and my colleague Prof. Director of the Center for Education Practice Research, will speak to the research. I remember very fondly many excited conversations about the possible form and function of this school as a laboratory for the prospective teachers of young children. It was modeled on the examples of Bank Street School of Education in New York, in the US, and the Viki and Normala teacher training schools in Helsinki, Finland. There was a clear vision for Funda UJabule as a teaching school. It would be a school of excellence, where student teachers could experience schooling and the education of young children at its best. And the Funda UJabule school teachers' roles were to inspire excitement about teaching and passion for teaching, and dispel the fallacy that teaching in the primary school is akin to babysitting. In short, it would be a place where students could learn the virtues and qualities of excellent primary school teachers. This vision was also my and many of my colleagues' inspiration to work in this program on Soweto. We wanted to be part of educational history in the making. Now, 5 years after the inception of the school, we're in a position to reflect on how far we've come in meeting the purposes we originally set and to identify what still needs to be achieved. So in this reflection, I talk as an educational realist, albeit a hopeful one. In the interest of fairness, I will try to present an accurate picture of the successes and the challenges of this initiative. Because ultimately, as Professor Gravett rightly said, what drives our work here on Soweto and in Funda UJabule is a quest for educational justice. We are concerned with investigating the processes and practices that will produce usable knowledge for the improvement of primary school education in this country. So first let me address how the teaching school contributes to primary school teacher education. I see so many young students, many of them African, enter our classrooms on Soweto, wanting to become teachers who know about young children and how to teach them effectively. Funda UJabule thus definitely serves as an educational laboratory. It provides prime opportunities for these prospective students to study the development of young children, focusing on how they learn, change, and develop over time. Now, this is in line with some of the principles underpinning the best teacher education programs in the world. Students are assigned one child in their first year that they follow closely for 4 years, for the duration of their degrees, paying particular attention to how children learn, where they struggle, and how to adjust their teaching. And from our preliminary research, we found that this is an extremely valuable experience for the teachers of young children. The school also serves as a practice site for, as Professor Rensburg said, for bridging the practice theory divide, or the so-called practice theory divide in teacher education. So student teachers in the UJ primary school programs get first-hand experience of an ordinary public school from their very first year. Their observations and concerns from this school environment are transported back to the university classroom, interrogated, and then taken back to the school classroom. So in the process, students' university coursework serves as a lens for examining practice, and in turn, practice becomes a lens for interrogating theory. The reports from students illustrate that this has been one of the successes, the major successes of this program. For instance, a second-year student in our research said, "I am connecting what I have been taught and what I have read about teaching children how to learn, to read, with how the teacher does it in the classroom." I'm sure you will agree with me, very powerful learning. Now to come to the challenges. Some of these we can address with time and iterative cycles of testing out what works and what doesn't. But there are a few that cannot be addressed so easily, and these warrant some serious deliberation. At the level of operations, working across multiple systems, each with its own understanding of education, with its own ideas of process, practice, and discourses, is very complex. The lack of a workable model, the number of students to be placed in the school in each observation cycle without completely overrunning Funda UJabule with more student teachers than there are children, combined with a very restrictive school timetable and fast-paced school curriculum, pose tangible challenges. Childhood education staff are thus both building and refining a model of teacher education to incorporate a teaching school experience as they implement it. This is no easy feat. Likewise for the Funda UJabule teachers. Nothing could have prepared them beforehand for the expectations of working in a very different kind of primary school. This process, colleague, takes patience, it takes resilience, it takes tenacity, and it takes an incredibly hard-working group of dedicated staff to get to where we are today. A second huge challenge is the status of the school. As an ordinary public school, Funda UJabule is subject to the legal and policy framework of public schools in South Africa. This directly impacts the management of such a school. We do not yet have a model inclusive enough of the views of all stakeholders in decision-making for a school that serves multiple purposes, such as Funda UJabule. Some pertinent questions we have been asking going forward are, how can we get all stakeholders to learn to adapt their practice? How much legal right does or even should the university have to make an input that will be considered by the SGB, the SMT, and the Department of Education? One such issue, for instance, is with respect to teacher appointments. Here we have learned valuable lessons from our colleagues at the University of Helsinki. They've been working with their version of teaching schools for close on to 30 years. The practice in these schools, backed up by research and evidence of Finnish children's outcomes measured in numerous international tests, have yielded specific guidelines for appointing teachers. It is clear that there are higher professional requirements for teachers in teaching schools. This includes proven competency in teaching skills, supervision and mentoring, and assessment strategies. Once appointed, teachers will also have to serve as mentors to student teachers. To fulfill these roles, they would need to complete courses in university pedagogics and to undergo continuous supervisor training. Teachers in teaching schools thus have to learn how to become teacher educators. Then there's another expectation that they will engage in research in collaboration with the university so as to contribute to the development of teacher education. Thus, if, as is currently the case, the university cannot influence the choice of teacher, the whole purpose of the teaching school could easily be derailed. This is a very real problem for us at UJ. In our research on this school's implementation, and you will find a report that you will get when you exit this venue, the research team suggests some alternative school types and legislation to address this. There are many such issues that have arisen with the growth of the program. Of late, these include what new duties and undertakings will be on the table now that childhood education is a UJ flagship. So we're very grateful for it, but it also comes with a huge set of responsibilities. How do we all accommodate both the national and the international interest in the school without exposing the children in this school to too much? And if teachers have to take on the added responsibility of mentoring students throughout the school year and still fit in time for research, how is this exemplified in their contractual responsibilities? On the other hand, from the perspective of parents, what do they sign up for when they bring their children to Funda UJabule? For that matter, what do academics sign up for when they decide to join the Department of Childhood Education? Again, we can learn much from our Finnish colleagues, who tell us that in Finland, the various stakeholders consider the education of children to be paramount. Neither political affiliations, fiscal limitations, nor academic interests take precedence. The teaching school, the university, the teacher unions, and the education department work together to ensure that the educational enterprise in the teaching school is not compromised. I could ask you at this point, do we have the same assurance that this is the case in South Africa? The idealist in me wants to jump up and down and shout, yes. But the educational realist in me says, not yet. Wait a while. We still have much work to do here. These, ladies and gentlemen, are the kinds of matters that we need to deliberate on carefully. If we want to create teaching schools as sites of excellence to serve teacher education and research, and still yield world-class public primary school education, it simply cannot be educational business as usual. Thank you.
Nadine, thank you very much for sharing the lessons, sharing the challenges, but also sharing the good work that is being done in Funda UJabule School, the commitment of our academic staff, and the commitment of our teachers in the school. And yes, it has been a real learning curve the last 5 years. I think sometimes, thinking back, we didn't really realize what we were embarking on. But simultaneously, if you ask anybody involved, would you have done it again? They will say yes, yes, yes. Because of what we are building here and that we know will yield very positive results. And we are already on our way.
The University of Johannesburg. Rethink, reinvent.